Hello everyone, this is Nihala Mohammed of Cambridge College of Architecture, presenting women's equity within urban public space. The threat of violence against women is a daily experience in public spaces which results in gender exclusion and restricts women's movements and their ability to benefit from the opportunities offered by work, health, education, and leisure options, which in turn is basically denying their right to the city. So, a general understanding of spatial planning will definitely highlight the issues of safety, fear of safety, security, mobility, accessibility, and ensures that the quality of spaces actually reflects everyone's need. We can see many attempts from the Kerala government to promote women's safety and access in public spaces like a BPP proposing 7,000 cameras in the city and a network introduced by the Child and Women Department. So as part of the Smart City project, Kochi has completed their safety audit stage, which is conducted by the Safety Pen, which shows that the city is now ready to change and implement new strategies by incorporating design elements for the spaces to be women friendly. So these are the results from the study. So the standard research question is how urban planning and design in Kerala can accord gender equity. Sub-research questions are what is the need to consider gender as a parameter in the planning of public spaces? What role does gender play in our urban planning experiences? What is a safe public space for women and how it is different from male perceptions of women's safety? How should the planning process be designed and how do the structures and the process contribute to gender equity? So the aim is to study how gender equity can be addressed through urban planning and spatial design specifications, and the objectives are to study and establish gender equitable urban public spaces and to analyze the study in the need for use of space 24/7, eyes on the street, safe urban commons, walkable city within the parameters of gender equity of public spaces, and to analyze how can the public spaces in Kochi become gender fair. So the dissertation addresses the relationship of men and women within the CIS definitions and establishes their perceptions and role in planning or designing a public space. So the scope does not extend to understand the spatial needs of trans and other binary gender, which is recognized as a complete set of different needs. So the study part is actually divided into understanding gender and its perceptions, gender and social development concepts, learning feminist theories, caste and gender intersections, gender in urban planning, and the key issue areas where gender inequity intersects with the built environment. From where we can understand like what does planning and designing public space for women actually mean and why is it important, and certain factors like accessibility, mobility, health and hygiene, safety, and freedom from violence. So what we can understand from the literature is like okay, there is many perceptions and concepts and theories that's been discussed from many years about including gender in urban planning and designing, but you cannot see much development or especially when we look into the Kerala perspective, we cannot see much. And the study emphasizes the need of the space of use of space 24/7, eyes on the street, safe urban commons and walkable city. Then this is actually an example of how a city have been like changed from perspective planning to an actually decentralized planning where each and every stage has been like explained properly. So there is actually a gap which we can see from the three different user groups, which is legislators, the urban planners, and the end user group women. So this dissertation tries to actually identify that gap and do the respective needs. So the methodology of understanding is like to actually study using the properly established countries, which is known as like the gender equitable countries, and then to come into the Kerala context or the Cochin context and understand like okay, what's the most access public space and what's the least access public space, why is it so, and to understand okay what are the differences that comes through in various stages like from the legislative perspective or the urban planning perspective and the end user groups. So what actually, where is the gap actually to identify that? So the research starts with studying the Vienna, which is a city known as for women. So the basic step that they conducted is like they did a survey from between men and women, and they identified okay who travels most and what from which method do they travel, and they identify that okay, women are the one who travel more, and because they're the one who is known as like the caregivers, so they're the ones who might have to travel more number of times to go to a place or like to take their grandparents to hospital or like the children to parking, etc. So these are the major solutions that's been like firstly identified by the city. That is like widening footpaths and sufficient lighting, giving and visibility around the areas, and etc. So this is how the process actually went, like how this purpose of travel and like the walking distance and the walking speed of each user group to emphasize the importance of everyone. And they actually promote the short distances, like from okay, how a person is traveling and by like where should we give certain amenities and etc. Then these are the many criteria that they have went through, like how emphasize like okay, what's the importance of giving open spaces, or like the footpath network, how it should be, like how the place will be flexible, and how and all the design should be, the boundaries should be designed and etc. So it's been differentiated under certain categories, like including the considering fear of safety and the activities of women or like the girls, like what kind of places they go through and etc. Then they actually recommend frame certain conditions, like to encourage participation planning, or like encouraging gender sensitive work on site, etc. So these are the actual methods that they have, how they went and how they have converted a space into like proper equitable space. So that they have launched program in development, and they have formulated certain objectives which emphasize like okay, our control body should be like how should the actors be sensitized, or like how the planning process should be actually developed. So this is actually an example, and this is done in municipal department 21. They are actually responsible for like land use planning in Vienna, and this is another way to encourage actually the design, introducing design competitions can actually encourage people to come and participate, and this will actually welcome a lot of young people into the mainstream. And this is actually an example of another way of how they have actually considered everyday life of a women in urban planning. This is the example of MA 21B. So they have also understand the importance of these semi-public open spaces, like how shared actually welcomes many people, and how it actually directs people into the public spaces or like to their home. So this is actually an example of municipal district plan where they widen street ways and paths, and like where should zebra crossing should be given, only how it should be more pedestrianized, etc. And in short, this is the procedures they have been went through, like setting objectives, initial assessment of the area, then the selection of the area, then the project design, etc. So now then we will go through the another city called Toronto, which is also majorly safe for women to travel. So they have actually introduced designed waiting areas which emphasize the safety and well-lit spaces. So then we look into the Indian context, and we come through Kolkata, which is actually known as the safest city for women in India by NCRB. So we identify three factors that actually is responsible for crime. Those are known as generators, attractors, and enablers. Then this is the result of survey that's been conducted through online to understand differential perceptions of men and women while accessing a public space, and it's understood that okay, women need a lot of facilities or like the amenities to make them actually feel safe, and women actually need familiarity of a space to be go there and access it. Then this is actually live case studies as a result of the previous study, which summarized to places like Info Park, Kalu Stadium, Marine Drive, Kings Workplace, Subhash Bose Park, and Whitela Hub. So it's like going through each and every factors like the spatial structure of the places, the framing of the places, and the elements used in the public spaces. So coming to the discussion, this is a illustration done by Lewardest, and to understand like how public space is different for the user groups, and it emphasizes okay the need of having environmental aspect, like having the green in the space, which actually leads path, and which actually doesn't lead to the end areas, like the end dead ends. And then we speak about the cultural aspect of equitable city, where we talk about the gated communities and how we are going to have a public spaces. Then we talk about social aspects, which actually encourages different user groups, like having residential in the upper side and have commercial side in the ground floor, and the threshold being actually properly actively used. Then the spatial aspect of the equitable city, which actually encourages the compact planning, where the public space is very adjacent to the public amenities. Then we come to the importance of art as a strategy for equitable city, where we look into the Columbia context and the Indian context, that is Fusat ki design in Delhi. Then we speak about the importance of eyes of the street, that is the visual accessibility, where we identify that okay, doors, windows, and terrace should be open to the street. Then we talk about lighting, where we emphasize the color of the lighting, where we need warm white colors to actually identify if the person, if that's a bush, or if that's a person that's approaching us. Then we need to understand different layers and context and contrast. That is very crucial when we introduce lighting. So there are like certain factors that we need to consider. Then anthropometry is actually considers okay, men is the universal standard, so we need to actually consider women in the planning process, and the anthropometry should be considered according to that. You can also have child as a strategy to welcome women in the public spaces. Then we speak about the importance of having a public space in 24/7, and the need to have planned amenities in the street, like having ATMs or medical shops or like hospitals in the proper intervals can actually make a street active 24/7. Then this is the ways like how threshold should be considered, or like how it should be maintained to prevent crime in the public spaces. So it can be like by clearing boundaries and collective ownerships, improved surveillance, which emphasize the need to have actually the natural and digital visibility. Then there are like main criteria that should be like included in the education and policy making. Then in the end we speak about the importance of having a proper without a gap. So we understand. So the gap between the urban planners, legislative body should be closed, and we should actually encourage a lot of local communities. They are the actually end user groups in the design process. So which also emphasize that the cities have actually the ability to provide something for everyone, and only because and only when they are created by everyone. This is a quote by Janie Jacobs written in the book Death and Life of Great American Cities. So the benefits of having a great public space will be like more walkable city, like more sociability and everything. And this actually reinforces the structure of the neighborhood and make it more easier and understand more like legible for the people in the movement network or tree planning in big form. And we need to actually co-locate the public facilities and open spaces. Then we need to introduce art in public spaces, which actually acts as a form of awareness. Then we come to the three laws we need to amend actually, that are Article 243W, the Architects Act 1972, amend planning and municipal laws, and create an office or workspace which is dedicated to women or gender, or like sexual minorities affairs in the municipal corporations, which also emphasize the need to have women in planning processes, because they are the user group, they are the major user group, so they will be the more aware ones. And in the end, we talk about the actual like the planning process, which we found as a gap from the Vienna model and from the other cities. So firstly, we need to analyze the problem, then the objectives we need to create, then the planning, then the implementation, then we need to evaluate it. Then in the end, we are seeking for a new urban governance with a citywide public space service, the citywide urban plans with a proper clear focus of a public space, which can actually be a revolution in the making. This is it. Thank you so much.